Again, welcome everybody. My name is Marcin Kaczak, and thank you for joining my session today. I am from Cybereason. I'm pretty sure that this company might be not too familiar to you. So, because we've got quite straight agenda, I divided the presentation into a couple of parts, just a simple introduction of myself, and then we will focus on our topic, how to stop chasing the alerts, at least how to try to do that. And we'll go through short case study around ransomware, and then I will show you a couple of things about our platform, which I strongly believe can be really helpful in the daily basis operation of each software. So we've got only 30 minutes. So I will try to keep a couple of minutes for the questions. However, we've got also our booth there. So if you won't mind, I would like to take all the questions you've got after the session. So, short about me. This is my second time on the risk. The first one was during the pandemic, so it was the virtual event at the time. Great experience to be here, to meet with you face to face. I'm more or less for 12 years in the industry. Probably you know those brands like FireEye, Mandiant, Trellix, and I had the pleasure to work there for a couple of years. So it might happen that we touched before even. Besides that, I started my journey working for a local integrator in Poland. So I used to be pre-sales, post-sales, doc writer, escalation manager, and multiple other roles. Apart from that, I believe I feel better your pain and potential challenges because of that, because I was working arm to arm with customers for several years. Besides that, I am full-time dad and husband as well, and this is my happy three of them. It took about 10 minutes to gather everybody in single spot, and 5 more to keep them smiling for a couple of seconds. Our target for H2 is to get 5 minutes for that. Yeah, so that's about me. But now about you. How do you think? How many alerts you can handle per day? It's a tough question. I don't expect to get exact numbers. I can share what industry says about that. So you can find different answers for 1,000 per day, 4,000 per day. So it all depends. But I believe that everybody will agree with me that no matter how big you are and how many endpoints you are managing, we've got really multiple tools right now, and the last several years were spent mainly on expanding on the coverage and the visibility and how to make it easier to get the good spot. However, I watched and I listened to the most presentation, and I don't mind to name it in a different way. We don't need to use talent shortage term. However, I believe everybody will agree that we've got too less time for everything to be handled in the proper way, right? No matter how big you are. And of course, I bet that you follow the MITRE in some way. I mean the MITRE framework, which helps us to get familiar with the current techniques and tactics and techniques that attackers are using. But there is one challenge with MITRE. If you would go through it literally one by one to get the full coverage, what would happen? So, taking this example, this is one of the MITRE technique described. Shell with unexpected parent. Is it enough to name it as an alert for you? Yes, no? Quick survey? I don't hear you. So we've got probably a couple of approaches to that. I've got multiple examples like this, showing that, of course, this one, when you've got the shell process with unexpected parent, this might be interesting for you, right? It might be an initial point for the investigation. However, would I like to drag the attention of my analyst each and every time when somebody from my IT team is running CMD to execute their script to make the job easier for them? I don't think so. Another example, also from MITRE, this time network connection discovery. Again, nice entry point for the analyst, for the SOC team, for the investigator, maybe for Hunter. But again, we've got multiple situations when somebody is listing tasks and searching for process ID of specific type, and so on and so forth. So, do we need more ITsec specialists? Or maybe you don't need more ITsec specialists? Usually the answer is like this, because of course we would like to have more people, right? But it's not feasible at every case. But if you take under consideration all the things I mentioned, so following more and more frameworks, telling you what you should chase on a daily basis to be protected, right? Getting more and more tools around your infrastructure, starting from network traffic monitoring, analyzing, maybe some network discovery things, and ending up on the endpoint side, which is probably the most prolific place to produce a bunch of alerts each and every day. It might be challenging for you to chase each and every alert in the same way, right? Because if you would like to do that, at any point you need to hire, train, and maintain your staff, right? Which is challenging itself. But without them, you won't be able to detect, triage, and assign proper priority to each alert that I showed you, right? If you would like to apply MITRE framework, for example, one by one, this is going to happen. And the last one, without this, still, you can't be sure that you understand what is happening right now in your environment and what could potentially happen after this action. And ransomware is still quite interesting topic. I'm not sure what is your view on that. However, definitely, I strongly believe it's a hot business. And we've got multiple proofs or proof points about that, and I selected a couple of them, which was issues in the May with solid numbers. So why ransomware groups are still active? The answer is quite simple. Take a look at those three groups. Logbit, they raised $75 million. They asked for 175 come to them, right? So I would say nice return of investment. The next one, Babuk, they raised 49. Sorry, received 13, requested for 49. And our champion, HIF, more than $120 million, right? So, any ideas why they are able to request for such amount of money right now? Because it's changed significantly over the last couple of years. Because the way how they are working is totally different comparing to 2015 or something. When I was at FireEye, I used to say that I like ransomware because, as you know, FireEye was focused on sandbox solution, which was able to detect really nasty stuff on the network side or on the endpoint side. And ransomware was nice because from the very first day, I was able to see the outcome. Because my end user received the encryption message, that's it, done, reimage the endpoint, forget about it. Right now, it's all different. And not sure, did you see the latest Magic Quadrant? This time for ransomware, because it is. And on the right-hand side, we've got Logbit, the third edition of Logbit. So the evolution is coming. And I also checked why we've got single leader, right, on the right corner. And there are a couple of answers. The one is especially interesting, I believe. So first of all, Logbit 3.0 allows the attacker to apply some parameters which make each sample unique. So you cannot rely anymore at all on the signature-based detection against that. To make it even harder for the investigator, they added the password also for the execution. So even if you get the sample, you cannot make it run without the password. So it's a kind of obfuscation technique and how to make the life of the analyst harder. But the last one, take a look at this. They introduced bug bounty program. It's officially announced, so they asked their developers, please review our code and suggest what can be done better. Do we have any flaws? Is there any risk that somebody will decrypt the files without our key? So, a couple of years ago, it would be unbelievable to see things like this. And to summarize how right now the ransomware operation looks, I took one example about a group called Black Basta, which was described in the Cybereason blog entry last year. And here is the clue. So right now, the patient 0 is just the beginning, right? Because when they achieve the initial foothold, they start to seek for credentials, try to establish command and control to make the attacker aware that you've got the foothold. They are looking for surrounding PCs. They are looking for domain administrator accounts, of course, to make the jump to key servers. And with that access, they are spreading around the whole environment. This is the reason why today encryption phase is really the last thing that they are doing. You can be sure that if you see already the encryption phase, a bunch of actions was taken before that. So we got two contradictory statements that we can't chase each other, and on the other hand, we have to do it effectively in some way to be protected against things like this, right? Because without full visibility, it might happen that you will miss an important step. So how Cybereason works, and is it different in any way comparing to solutions that you've got? Again, short survey. Who is using right now the solution calling themselves EDR? Who is using right now? So you got, let's say, 50-50, right? So you've got the concept of the EDR, which was, honestly speaking, introduced by FireEye in the early 2012, because what they said was protection in 100% cases is not possible, right? So we need to provide the tool that will focus on detection phase, because this is the place where at least we can be notified that something bad happened, that somebody is playing around your environment. So the concept introduced by Cybereason might be somehow related to the Stuxnet. Anybody heard about Stuxnet attack? So 2009, and any clue why Stuxnet refers to Cybereason? Okay, that's some nodding. So for the rest of you, our founder, Leo Div, was leading the group at Unit 8200 who conducted the operation Stuxnet against Iranian program. You will hear more during the main hall session from Robert Żelazo. I hope you will join as well. But this is just the background. So the guys from Unit 8200, they knew that they got 100% of effectiveness in terms of getting the initial access to the environment. So the technology that they need to provide to be protected against that will have to deal with, first of all, big data problem, and the second thing, how to provide the answers in an efficient way. Because I can tell you that, for example, you've got data lake of data, and I can say there is the answer, but it is on you to find this answer on your own. So it doesn't work at all in the enterprise environments. So this is the concept of malicious operation instead of the other. So let me describe how it works. So as all EDRs should, at least are supposed to, we are working on the operating system level to record the telemetry from your endpoints. That's the first thing. However, the telemetry is not kept locally. We are sending the telemetry to the central point, which is called cross-machine correlation engine. And this is the heart of the system and true differentiator. But you can ask me why, of course. So, two things. To give you the answer immediately, we are not using the regular database. Instead, we are using in-memory graph database. So, whoever had a chance to play with graphs, you know how effective it is in terms of finding security issues and cross-correlation problem at scale. So this is the first thing. And then, with this data gathered in central point, what we are doing, we are playing a detective role. So we are trying to find different evidences, because this is the first step to gather some evidences, but not all evidence will lead us to the full investigation, right? This is the concept. So based on evidences, it might happen that we will come to the conclusion as suspicion. So something is suspicion for us. But still, those examples that I showed you were taken from our system. Those were only suspicions. So they were not transferred to the malicious operation, because the whole concept of the malloc is to get the chain of the events leading to the malicious outcome on the endpoint side, to name it as a malware, right? As a malicious operation. This is the moment where the analyst should definitely focus on those events. And I will share one experience from last year, because customers who switched to our system, simply, they got 5, maybe 10 malwares per week. So it was totally different for them to focus only on 5 or 10 events like this. Why? Because all the other stuff on the prevention level, because of course this is from where we started. Right now, when you say EDR, you are thinking about EDR plus NGAV kind of thing to protect yourself from things that can be stopped. So this concept helps a lot to differentiate about between legitimate usage of PowerShell, which is being used on a daily basis by multiple administrators, for example, from the things consisting of 4 different evidences, 3 different suspicions, and this is required to name it as a malware, right? The safe against ransomware. As I said, the encryption phase is the last phase that is happening. So you've got the description about the root cause. However, the process responsible for that, PowerShell, was not cached on any kind of heuristic or signature-based detection or malicious payload. Simply, we cache it because we are observing ransomware behavior, which relies on changing multiple things, multiple files across the operating system and so on and so forth. So it might happen that 5, 6, maybe 10 elements will be encrypted. This is the price. However, with that, you are able to stop pretty much unknown tool designed to simply encrypt the files. What about malicious payload? This is the common technique we're using right now. Instead of providing any kind of object to your endpoint, the attacker will simply inject the payload to the process. And run DLL is a perfect example of living of the land technique, right? You can't simply prevent execution of run DLL. However, you can block the injection phase, right? So this is the core concept. We don't want to block all inward exe. We don't want to stop your business from doing their stuff, right? We want to apply the prevention in the right moment. And the same for the Cobalt Strike, which was, by the way, used by Black Basta, as you saw. So again, 7 different evidences, from suspicious module, loaded to memory, connection to internal addresses, automatic execution, and so on and so forth. So everything is available for each and every process in your environment. We don't have to mark it as a malware to not mark it, right? So if you've got, for example, big SOC team, and you've got threat hunters, they are more than welcome to use those entries to start the investigation, to start the hunting process based on that. But on a daily basis, then they don't need to pay attention to each and every of them. And again, inward exe this time used a Werefeld exe process as a part. So of course we can discuss a lot about the efficiency of the solution, right? So I love Mitra as well, and the Mitra is somewhat the reference for EDR type of solutions. And who checked the latest Mitra evaluation results coming from last year, because we are still waiting. 1, 2, okay? So this year they are using Turla APT group as a reference to use TTPs of this particular group, which is really awesome because Turla is quite active in our region from this perspective. Last year it was Wizard, Spider, and Sandworm group. So great combination because Wizard Spider is a financial motivated group and Sandworm is APT group. Both of them were using ransomware. First one to submit request for ransom, and Sandworm to simply hide trucks. And Mitra, of course, define different categories. And those numbers are coming from Mitra. Cybereason didn't create that. I would draw your attention to two things. Real-time detection. This is the power of graph, because when I'm saying about the graph, probably it's more or less artificial to you as a user, right? You don't care what is behind the scenes. However, you definitely care about the real-time detection. You want to get the answer immediately when something is happening. And the last one, config changes, which indicates how many custom rules the vendor had to apply to achieve this result. And of course, results presented by vendor is not reliable. So let me show you perfect graph from checkpoint, which used some technique to make them higher in this right hand side. However, you see where Cybereason is comparing to the different techniques. And the last part of my really short presentation was around hunting process and how to hunt and conquer different things. So who likes query language? Honestly. So it depends, of course, it depends. However, from my perspective and my experience, what is the problem with query language? First of all, you need to learn it. So the onboarding process is much longer if you need to learn first how to submit the request, and then, the worst part, wait for the results. And at the end, you are finding some typo in your query, which leads to the waste of time. And just by accident, I took some example of hunting queries coming from one of the EDR solutions available on the market. So quite simple task. We want to find out living of the land used with MSHTA process, where you have to use target process name contains, in any case, MSHTA, and command line containing JavaScript, about, script, and VB script. And this is that one simple example, right? So this is the example of how query language needs to be used. And this is how it looks at Cybereason. So investigation is being done on the graph. So me as an analyst, if I don't know at all what I am looking for, I am looking for entities that are quite familiar to me, because naturally I'm using process with simple filtering on the process name and the command line containing 3 or 4 different entries, right? And what would you do if I would ask you, please find me all MS Office processes around your environment that has children processes with network connections outside your network? Because this is the natural phishing email model, right? You've got MS Office spawning children process, connecting that externally to get the dropper, for example. It's quite simple. So we are looking for processes with children processes with the connections, and here is the filtering telling that I am looking for external connections leading to specific remote addresses. I can traverse the graph in both directions, so I can apply more filtering and then get back to the source process that initiated that. With graph, I will not prove that right now, however I can do it later on. It takes a couple of seconds to get the results, and I don't need to apply any initial filtering. What was the issue with my previous employee? When I had to search for anything, first of all I had to request to gather the data from the endpoints, then I had to wait a really long time to get the results. Here the data is present in our console just like that, and of course we can find things like this. So searching is really useful, and it encourages you to start the hunting on your own. And you might think that cloud is the only option, because this is something common for the leaders in Magic Quadrant and also in Might. But not for Cybereason. This is good information, and I also want to emphasize that. We can deploy everything on-prem, and it doesn't mean that I will offer you 30% of capabilities. Because we can drag all the servers from our side that are required to establish the infrastructure on your side, to keep all the telemetry on-premise, and we've got also even mode called AirGuard. We've got multiple military facilities that requiring to keep the data on-prem, of course, but also doesn't allow it to initiate any connection outside. So this is something I would like to focus, because you might be looking for things that are efficient, or you have to provide efficacy, and you want to be effectiveness, right? So we want to combine all of this, not only to do it right, but do it quickly and economically, and at the end, let's just say that I can do it well. This is our goal, and this is what Cybereason provides. And looking at the time, I've got 1 more minute, so maybe you've got some question from your side. Any kind. Please challenge me. I wanted to, to shoot a couple of promises. Now it's time to check.
So if you have everything on premise,
Yes.
So you have the AI engine on premise also, or do you need to connect to the cloud to get AI analytics in the console, or everything is on premise? You probably need some kind of a beast of a machine to run everything.
This is a good term, and indeed, the detection servers, as you saw, they've got some significant resources required. However, my experience is that when I joined Cybereason last year, I thought nobody would be keen to provide such resources. The reality was quite the opposite. So, yeah.
Most of the users go on-prem rather than cloud.
If you are asking about 2022, no, it was more cloud, but 2023, this is on-prem crazy, yeah, really. It really resonates.
You're working with
Yes, I am.
Do you have any managed services also, or just?
Yes, we've got managed services, of course, and just to be clear, we will not provide managed services for on-prem, just to be clear, but for the SaaS form factor, we've got managed detection and response services, which gives you 3 nice numbers, which is 1, 5, 30. 1 stands for detection, 5 for initial triage, and 30 for remediation. So these are our SLO in MDR services. Really awesome stuff.
No hybrid model or something.
Hybrid? What do you mean by hybrid?
Yes, that you have something on the side and then the other part.
Well, the thing is that, to provide managed detection services, literally our analysts from Global SOC, they have to get access to your console, right? It's not feasible for most of the cases, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to get the on-prem. If somebody needs to get access to your data, I would say that doesn't make sense to do it like this. Maybe for on-prem, it's worth to consider MDR provided by a local partner, like companies specializing in providing SOC services. This is a feasible way. But for our services, it's, at least today, it's for SaaS delivery only. Yeah.
You have already.
Okay, got it. Guys, thank you so much. It was a pleasure for me. As I said, I will be there. I especially wear the jacket.
Do you have any more jackets? Yeah. Where can we find those?
Let's talk about it. Great, thank you.